All right, if you remember from yesterday, we went over most of Chapter 12. All right, I talked to Evan yesterday. He is not doing Chapter 13 because it is really difficult. All right, and it has nothing to do with any of you. It's just that you could spend at least 4 or 5 weeks just on that chapter. All right, so what I'm going to do today is this. We're going to go back over the product maintenance application from yesterday. We're actually going to look at it in code. All right, and after we get done with that, we're going to look at a couple of examples, assuming that you are going to create a bank account. Okay, I'm just going to show you a couple of examples how you can do the same thing in 2 or 3 different ways. Then we're going to write one of these classes ourselves. Tried to pick something, and I based it off of something in a book I used to use many years ago, but it's going to be based off time. In other words, we're going to have a time class that'll have hours and minutes and seconds, and you'll see how this stuff hopefully works and gets put together. I'm going to ask, no, you're not going to get any points for it, but I'm going to ask that you try to follow along with me. I think it'll help you in understanding this. So, again, as it says, this is this product maintenance application. And with this product maintenance application, when I run it, it gets filled with these 4 products. This is the product code, the product price, and the product description. Talked about this stuff yesterday. If you click Add Product, it brings this up, but it's blank, of course. So you can fill it in, click Save, and then the product will be here. If you highlight any individual product and you click Delete, the product is removed. Does all that make sense? All right. So as it says, it retrieves product information from a file. It uses a file now rather than a database because they haven't talked about databases yet. All right. As it says, then it displays it or puts it into a list box and then sets up those buttons. And the button here is set up so that if you click Delete and you've got one highlighted, it will say, are you sure you want to do that, like we talked about. Okay. So I explained the add. I explained the delete. We talked a little bit yesterday about the fact that you have this tag property and that we're using that tag property, code, description, and price, along with the validator class so that if you've got something that's out of whack, for instance, if you tried to put in a price that was negative, you'd get an error message. All right? All right. So the classes that are used, again, we're going to look at them, the regular code, in just a minute. We talked about this product class yesterday. These 3 things that are right here, again, these things, they are referred to as instance variables. Each instance, or for us, each product, has its own code, its own description, its own price. Many different products could have the same price. It is possible that 2 products would have the same description. All right, maybe I've got 2 different nails from 2 different companies that look exactly the same, so the description could be the same, maybe the price is the same, but the code should be different. In other words, between every product that's in there, there should be a way to distinguish between every product. All right, there's only one method in here, and all it is it just returns this method that you see right here, this get display text. That's what gives you this. All right. There is a constructor that's called a no-arg constructor. It's just got parentheses. There's nothing in there. When you've got a no-arg constructor like that, it doesn't do anything. Now, you can have a no-arg constructor and do something with it. Usually you do. All right? And if you don't create any constructor whatsoever, one of those gets created for you that does nothing. If you create your own constructor and you want a default one with nothing in there, you must create it yourself. So if you create your own constructor, there is no default from the system. So if you want a default one, you have to make it. If you don't want one at all, or you're like, I don't even need any dumb constructor, then you don't create anything. All right. Now, this other thing in here, there's going to be stuff in here that isn't going to make a lot of sense to you in this product DB, but I'm going to show you it for completeness. All right. And as it says, there's a get product, and that just basically returns a list of products. So it goes through the file, it grabs everything that's in there, and it ends up basically populating the list box with those products. Then there's saved products, because if you add a new product or products, or you delete an existing product or products, you want the list to be brought, to be in sync. All right, so that's that one. Then there's this validator class, and notice a title, a static string that contains the text that's displayed in the title bar of a dialog box that's displayed for our error message. So the title basically, I believe, I could be wrong, but I don't think I am. Let's see. The title of these three things: code, description, or price. All right. And here's the other one. Here's the product maintenance form. Rather than do it like this, I'm going to bring it up. If you want a copy of this, all right, I can give it to you. It's no problem. I'm not going to run it off. I'll give you an electronic copy of it. I don't care. All right, so this is it. So this is what it looks like right now. All right, you run this. I'm going to click run in just a minute. It's going to go and it's going to call that DB, the one that's right here, and basically what that one is going to do is it's going to fill this up. Then if you click add product, all right, it's going to call something from the products file, all right, and if you click delete product. So let's just see it in action. It doesn't resonate real well on screen. I know that might not be that easy to read. But notice if I click add product and I come in here and the code A123. All right, they've got, it looks like they were all books in here, I think. So let's make up another book. All right, Murox Node.js for beginners. I don't know. They probably don't even have that. And let's say that it's $99.99. I click save, and there it is. All right. So there's two things that have to happen when I fill that in. The first thing is it has to come through and it has to put it in the list box. Also, it has to save it to the list. All right, I want to save that so the next time it comes up, that's in there. Now, if I decide I don't want that, I just highlight it, click delete, and it says, are you sure you want to delete this? And if I say no, it keeps it in there. And if I say yes, it's gone. I could literally remove all of these, exit, come back in again, and if I did that, these would be back again. All right? So let's see how all that stuff happens. All right. The first thing, again, is this product. We've talked about this before, but I'm going to show it to you one more time. So what do we have here? This is every single product. It's like, again, if I was going to go and create some kind of a program for people, and I would make a class called human being, and I would put all that stuff. Well, that's every product has a code, has a description, has a price. And as you probably guess, the code and the description are strings, the price is a decimal. Now, could you have made the product an int? Not in this case, because there are letters in it. It's never suggested that you take a field like this that you're not going to use in calculations. You should make it a string. You just should. All right, so if it was employee number, even social security number, if I decide if my social security number is 111-22-3333, it's not. But if it was, I could store it as just 111223333. Technically that way then I could store it as an int. But you shouldn't do that anyway. It's just never recommended. Plus you never know, someone later might say, I want it stored with the dashes. And if you make it an int, What it thinks that number is 111 minus 22 minus 333. So you're going to get a negative value in there for your Social Security number, which again wouldn't make any sense. All right, this is our constructor. So if we create a new product and pass it nothing, nothing happens. It's assuming that when we pass it something new, that we're going to pass it a string that represents a code. It's going to pass a string that represents a description, and it's going to pass us a price that represents, or a decimal that represents the price. Now, you're all smart enough to realize this. If I click Add Product, if I leave that blank, and I leave that blank, and I put in here 0, it says code is a required field. That's that validator that's in there. All right, so it's not allowing me to well, will it take a blank space? There and there. Okay, it did. That's not good code. So where they're checking that, they should trim it, because trim takes off any leading or trailing zeros. They should have added that, because now I got a product in here that doesn't have a code and it doesn't have a price. That's just bad programming practice to allow something like that to come in there. All right, so the names are code with a little c, description with a little d, and price with a little p. These are all private, meaning the only way that we can change those is by using public methods within this class. So what do we have? Well, here's our first one. All right. Now, I think I showed you this yesterday, but I do want you to understand there is absolutely nothing wrong with what they did here. Nothing. But we could have written this. I'm going to remove it right away. I'm just going to comment it here. We could have written this as just public string code get set. That one line does the same thing as these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 lines. So why would you want to use 11 lines? If you had to do some validation in here, then you must do it this way. But if you're not doing any validation, then you can do it this way here. All right? So that's the code. That's the description. Again, we could have done it in one line. And that's the price. We're not doing any checks on the price. What does that mean? That means that unless in that validator we're doing something, what if I come through here and I add a new product and A1, 2, 3 or whatever, they all started with a letter, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hello. And I put in here negative $34. It took that. That's not good either. Unless you literally want to have a price that where you're going to pay somebody to take it, which I can't really imagine. I mean, you could give something away for free, but typically it's not like, here, you take this and I'm going to pay you to take it. That doesn't usually happen. So again, you're seeing in here, they're just showing you this stuff, but there's not a lot of great stuff that's done as far as checking out in here. All right, and this is that display. And all this display does, there's two different things that you can put in here. This puts in the code and a comma, the price and a comma, and the description. This one you pass in a separator. What do you mean a separator? Well, if you remember the way this looked when we ran it, I guess you don't see it in here now, but the way that this looked when you ran it, each field had a tab between it. That was the separator. So that's the product. And again, I'm not going to say, hey, are there any questions? There might be. And you might not even know if you have questions right now. All right. So let's go to the next one. This is that product DB. This is the hard one. Why? Because they're dealing with a bunch of stuff they haven't talked about yet. All right. So for lack of better words, it's saying we've got this list. All right. And what we want to do basically is we want to take this list, and if somebody adds something to it, we want it added to this list. And if somebody removes something from it, We want it removed from the list. All right, that's good enough for right now. They rewrite this, I think it's in Chapter 22, something like that, where they use a database instead of doing this. And it's the same kind of program. All right, then we've got the validator. What's that doing? Well, notice we've got this static string that says entry error. All right, and what are we doing in here? Title value. Well, now what it says is, hey, if we put a value in like we were supposed to, everything's cool. But if we left it off, we're saying that it's a required field. You saw that before when I left that off. In fact, if I run this and I add a product and I click, code is a required field. The word code right there, they're getting that from that tag. So I'm running it again, and I'll put in a code. And it should say description is a required field. And you'll notice that it does. So I come through here and I just say hello. All right, and I save. Price is a required field. Does it make sense as far as what the validator is doing? It's making sure that there is a value put into each one of these. That's its job. All right, and you might look at that and say, okay, I even get that. Why do we have a whole new class just for doing that? When you write object-oriented code, the idea is you separate everything out as much as you can. Some people love object-oriented code because it breaks things down into so many units that are small. Some people hate it for the same reason. So there's a language, one of the first programming languages that I learned when I was back in a long time ago, when I was a professional programmer, C. All right, if I had 500 lines of code to write, then I would have probably written about 10 functions or methods, each of which would be 50 lines long. When you use an object-oriented programming language and you've got 500 lines, it would be more like you would write 50 methods, each would be 10 lines long. So the methods become smaller. Why? Because they should be ideally doing just one thing. All right, so that's that one, okay? And that's really all that I wanted to say about that. I don't think it pays going back through the book anymore on that because we've already talked about it. And again, I'm not saying, hey, does that totally make sense to you? If you said, yes, it does, I'd be surprised. The first time I went through this, it didn't make any sense to me. All right, so let's take a look at a couple of examples here, and then we're going to write one ourselves. So let's take a look. So let's come in here, and I've got 4 or 5 examples right here. So when you look in here, what we're assuming is we're going to create a class. This is for a bank account. All right, and you come in here. So it's only what? Not even 20 lines long. So you come in here, and this again is an instance variable because it's your name. Don't worry that there's not a first name and a last name. We're keeping it really simple right now, okay? So that's that. And if you look in here, there's none of those curlies. There's none of those other things that we looked at with properties. There's just one routine called getName, where you return the name, and another one called setName, when you set the name. And that's to show you, technically, this is still an object-oriented program, but it's not written using object-oriented stuff, so to speak. So if I come through here and I test this, so what's the test? I create a new bank account. I just call that one bank account. I think the other ones I just call them account. All right, and right here, it's going to write the account name. Well, guess what? It hasn't been set yet. So it's going to write a blank, nothing. And then it's going to say, enter your name. So if I come through here and I say Jeff Scott, then the name will be equal to Jeff Scott. Then I set the name equal to Jeff Scott. So when I print it out the second time, it should say account name Jeff Scott. Let's run it and see if indeed that happens. So again, there's nothing the first time. Now I come through here and I type in my name. And it says that's the name of the account. Now, should you care? Why should you care? What I want you to get out of this is that's the name of the object, bank account. All right? And if I want to call set name or get name, it's the name of the object dot the name of the routine. In fact, notice that when I type in this, so if I type in bank account dot, the system already recognizes there is what? A set name and a get name. The other stuff, this is stuff equals, get hash code, get type, and toString. That's built into every object automatically. All right, but the other stuff is what we added. So if I were to come back up here, I'm just going to remove this. And let's just say, I just want to show you this. So as an example, all right, let's say that, that I came in here, I don't know, and I also have in here private int h. Okay? Don't ask me why, but we got an h. So I'm going to copy both of these. And I'm going to come down here and I'm going to paste this in. I probably will get errors because I've already got those named. But I'm going to change this to get age. And I'm going to make this age. I'm going to make this set age. And I'm going to pass in an age. And there we go. Now, this has got to change. Why? Because it's an int, right? So that'll have to change. This will have to change because that's an int. Does that make sense? So I've just added another property. All right, so now I don't want to say name equals account name. All right, I want to come in here and say, so what do we do for name equal account name? Why don't we just say account age here? All right, so I'll say age equals account, and notice it already sees it, age. All right, now this isn't going to work when I run it until I put the stuff in here. All right, so here we're saying I'm just going to copy all of this. All right, so I'm going to come in here and copy this too. So let's say account age, and we'll say here get age. Notice there's no error there, right? Looks like it'll work. So it says enter name. Now we're going to have to say enter age. And I'll make this int the age. All right, but I'll have to change this from read line to console dot, I didn't even need the console there, I don't know why that's there, but convert dot to int 32 read line. All right, and I think it doesn't like, because I am using console, and I don't know why, like I said, I've got it in there, but I do. All right, now I'm going to set the age to the age. And I can print out not only the account name, but the account age. Now, it's not the account age, so that's kind of stupid, but just so you see all this. All right, I don't see any errors in there. I'm going to do a save all, and I'm going to run the program. And it says my age is 0. All right, so I enter my name. Oops, shouldn't have hit enter, but that's fine. Does that make sense? So I can add pieces to this on an as-needed basis. All right? All right, that's the first one. I'm going to show you 2 or 3 more we're going to take a break, and even though it'll probably be a little bit early, and then we're going to come back and we're going to write this time class. All right, and then we're going to write the time class, and then main is going to be a driver that's going to test it. You won't totally understand this stuff, but it'll help in your understanding. All right, at least that's my hope. So that was first one. That was this account thing. So here's another one. All right, so how did this change? Well, look. Now we've got that getter and setter. See that? We already talked about this. Again, I could do another one for age, like I just showed you. All right? And actually, that may make some sense, so let's do this. Private int age. All right? And I'm going to copy this entire thing again. And this will be a private int age. Returns the value, so again, this will be age. This one I'm going to change. All right, and I'm going to say this. If value greater than 0, we could make it 5. Maybe you have to be 5 to have an account. I don't know. But a lot of people, when their kids are born, they open up an account for them. So let's say and value less than 130. All right. If that's the case, we're going to say age equal value. Else, semicolon, else age equal 40. That's just some default that I've created. Okay, does all that make sense? All right, so then I come up here to the test. And again, it'll tell me to enter the account name exactly the same as we just did. All right, so I'm gonna add a line here. And again, we'll say age is, and my account dot age. All right, and after the enter account name, okay, we'll say enter account age. Oops. All right, then we'll display the name again, and we'll display the age. Right? Hopefully that made at least a little bit of sense to you. So I come in here, just like we had before, and well, that was interesting. I screwed up, but we'll go back and we'll look at it. All right. Actually, that's pretty neat that it did that, so let's look at it. Name is, ages, my account. See that? My account name, that should have said age. See? Almost always when you do something that silly. Okay? Oh, same kind of thing. I'm going to have to say convert dot to int 32 read line. Exactly what we did before. Right? It's going to break if I leave it blank or put something non-numeric. It's just going to break. There it is. Now I'm going to run it again, and I'm going to put in something that's out of range. All right, it took it. Well, we have to look at that. That means there's some kind of a problem in there. All right, let's run it one more time. Actually, two more. Let's run it again and put in a... That isn't good. And what happens when we run it? I think it's just going to break right here. String was not in the correct format. So we could have checked that. So let's see. So, age Trying to figure out why that wouldn't work. If it's greater than 0, how about if it's less than 0? Or it's greater than 130. See that? No, that isn't. Let's see. I'm going to try this. Value equal 40. So that's if it's bad, so to speak. Return. Not returning anything. This is just setting it. Now I want to see if that fixed it or if it did not. Well, it set it to 0. That's something. So it got into that code. Was it less than 0? Yes. Or greater than this? Yes. So value equal 40. All right, I'll have to check on that. What I'm trying to get across to you, maybe not that well. But again, we looked at it the first time and we just had a set and a get that we wrote. Now we're using these what are called auto-implemented properties. What we're going to get to, just so you know, probably by next week, all right, is we will go back and we will rewrite that payroll program. We'll rewrite it using classes. All right. All right, let's look at another one. So again, here is the auto implemented property. See that? Just get set. That's it. So again, just so you know this right here is as though you put in this. And value is just something that gets passed in. All right. But if you are not doing any validation, and sometimes you won't have to. You won't have to worry about validation. You're getting the information from a database or whatever, and they'll say no, that you don't have to validate your stuff. It's already. That's a lot less to do, right? At least in my opinion, it sure the heck is. All right. So now look at what's different. You're all in here. You're all famous now. So what it does is it's going to create 4 new accounts. But when I create the account, it assumes there's a name there. Now we're not checking anything. Let's try to make an account 5. And let's see what happens if we pass it in with nothing. Okay? It's nothing. All right? What I want you to take away from this, though, just so you know, when we say this, account.name, this right here, each one of these, what it does automatically is it calls that. When we did this, you put a name here, and a name here, and a name here, and a name here, and no name there, it automatically called this. All right? And if you say that sort of makes sense, that's where you should be. All right? I wouldn't really expect you to understand a lot more of it than that. I wouldn't. All right? So, just to show you, this is what we're going to do after we take a break. All right? Now, I brought some constants in here. I didn't have to. But why did I bring in constants? Well, the minimum number of hours, minutes, or seconds you could put in should be 0, right? The maximum number of hours is 23. We're assuming military time. The maximum number of either minutes or seconds is 59. So we're going to create these three instance variables. So each time we create a new time, it'll have its own hour, its own minute, its own second. The hours will have to be in this range, the minutes in this range, and the seconds in this range. Does that make sense? All right. Then we've got this. I call it, there is no term like this. I'm not saying I made it up, but maybe I did. I have no idea. I call it a full arg constructor. And guess what? You may or may not know what this means. If you pass in something and you say equals something, it's a default value. So if I don't pass in anything, it assumes that the hour is 0, the minute is 0, the second is 0. In other words, it's assuming it's midnight. Does that make sense? All right. And this is a little bit confusing in here. Why? Because we're calling another routine called set time. We could have, instead of writing this, we could have gone in and done this. We could have said this dot hour equals hour. This dot minute, in fact, we passed it with a little one, equals hour. This dot minute equals minute. This dot second equals second. We could have done that instead of what we did, but that's sort of what we did right here. Okay? The difference is if we do it here, we want to say this dot hour, which means set those directly, or we want to say big H, which is kind of setting them indirectly. The recommendation is that rather than repeat code, you do it like that. All right? So it's 8:45. Let's come back at 9, and we're going to write this just from absolutely nothing. I've got it written here, and then I created a copy. When we get done, ideally, this is what it's going to look like. Not real grand or glorious, but it's going to say, okay, we passed in nothing. It defaults to midnight. Here we passed in just an hour. So it's 2, but it defaults to 0000 and 2 a.m. Here we passed in hours and minutes.